In 1989, a man using the pseudonym Dennis sat in shadow on a Las Vegas television station and made a claim that would reshape UFO culture for the next 3.5 decades. His real name was Robert Scott Lazar. He said he'd been hired to reverse engineer alien spacecraft at a facility called S4, built into the mountainside south of Area 51 near Papoose Dry Lake, Nevada. The story was extraordinary. 9 flying saucers of non-human origin. A fuel source made from element 115, which didn't yet exist on the periodic table. A gravity propulsion system that bent space-time. Most scientists dismissed him. The government said he never worked there. And yet, 35 years later, Bob Lazar remains the most discussed figure in UFO history. His first appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience became the single most watched episode of the podcast ever.
One of the things that also interested me, because I built the craft, is how the waveguide worked with the ceiling in the interior and how it blended. If you can explain, there was no telescopic.
Well, this is why we wanted to talk to the metallurgist.
The question was never whether the story was compelling. The question is whether any of it is true. And in 2025, we finally have enough data points from AARO investigations, FOIA releases, congressional testimony, and Lazar's own latest statements to do a serious accounting. The backstory matters because it's where the first fractures appear. Lazar claims he holds master's degrees from both MIT and Caltech. Neither institution has any record of his attendance. Lazar says the government scrubbed his records, a claim that by its nature can neither be proven nor disproven. What can be verified? A 1982 Los Alamos Monitor article listing Robert Lazar, a physicist at the Los Alamos Meson physics facility, among attendees of a local event. Los Alamos National Laboratory initially denied he ever worked there. The phone directory proved otherwise. His name was in it. This is the recurring pattern with Lazar. Categorical government denials, followed by quiet, partial confirmations. He claims he was hired in late 1988 through a contract with EG&G, the defense contractor that managed operations at the Nevada test site. He says his interview was conducted at the facility itself and that his first day at S4 was in December 1988. Within weeks, according to Lazar, he understood the scope of what he'd walked into. Lazar has told this story many times, but his 2025 Rogan appearance may be the most detailed recounting. He describes being led into a hangar bay carved into the Papoose mountain range, seeing a disc-shaped craft, and initially assuming it was an advanced American project. Then his supervisor, a man he identifies only as Barry, corrected him.
Environment, with the way we've completely controlled our environment with air conditioning and electricity and electronics and flight and travel, we're so beyond everything else that evolved. Whereas,
according to Lazar, from that point forward, his assignment was explicit. He wasn't there to study the craft out of academic curiosity. He was given 2 directives, and only 2.
Cut the communication line, and the computers freak out and they go, well, I guess we'll just launch nuclear bombs, at everybody. And it launches weapons and, essentially holds everybody hostage. But
duplicate the technology and find a way to remotely disable it. Those are not research objectives. Those are military objectives. And if Lazar's account is accurate, they suggest a program that viewed this technology not just as an opportunity, but as a potential threat. Of all Lazar's claims, Element 115 has generated the most scientific debate, because in 2003, a joint Russian-American team at the Dubna laboratory actually synthesized it. It was later named Moscovium and added to the periodic table in 2016. Skeptics correctly point out that the existence of superheavy elements beyond 112 was widely predicted by nuclear physics models in the 1970s and 1980s. Predicting a new element would be synthesized is not the same as having a stable isotope of it in your hands, and this distinction is critical. The Moscovium created at Doesn decayed in less than a second, roughly 220 milliseconds for its most stable isotope. Lazar has always claimed that the element 115 used at S4 was a stable isotope, one that does not exist in any known nuclear physics model. He says it was the fuel source for the craft's reactor, that when bombarded with protons, it transmuted to element 116, which immediately decayed and released antimatter. That antimatter, annihilated against matter, produced the energy to generate a gravitational field. The physics community has not validated this mechanism, but it hasn't been categorically ruled out either. Theoretical islands of stability, regions of the periodic table where super-heavy elements might resist rapid decay, remain an active area of nuclear research. Whether a stable isotope of element 115 exists on one of those islands is an open question. Beyond the propulsion theory, Lazar has consistently described physical characteristics of the craft that remain difficult to attribute to a hoaxer working from 1980s knowledge. He describes a hull with no visible seams, no rivets, no weld lines, as though the entire structure had been fabricated as a single piece. In 1989, that description had no analog in manufacturing. Today, additive manufacturing, 3D printing in metal, can produce seamless structures, but not at the scale or complexity Lazar described. He also describes internal components with material properties that defied his understanding as a physicist.
That are controlling sentient AI, that are fueling them and giving them resources. I mean, you really have no limit to where this goes. You scale out 1,000 years. You scale out 2,000 years.
You really can't scale
A pipe that retracts telescopically without increasing in diameter. Emitters that bend without visible wiring or joints. Lazar doesn't claim to understand these things. He simply reports what he observed. And that restraint, that willingness to say, "I don't know how it works," is either a sign of honesty or an exceptionally disciplined performance maintained for 35 years. One of the most strategically significant aspects of Lazar's account isn't about physics, it's about bureaucracy. He describes a program structured to fail.
It was run because it was so top secret. Everything was compartmentalized. Like the metallurgists weren't talking to the propulsions people, who weren't talking to if there were biologics experts.
Right.
Like everybody was
super frustrating, because I think I don't remember exactly where that started. Again, it's 40 years ago, but I think it started with the seats. And no, it's
Metallurgists couldn't talk to propulsion engineers. Propulsion engineers couldn't talk to the materials team. No one saw the full picture. Lazar says this extreme compartmentalization wasn't a byproduct of security culture. It was the architecture itself, and it actively prevented the kind of cross-disciplinary collaboration that breakthrough science requires. This claim took on new weight in June 2023, when David Grush testified before Congress that the U.S. government possesses intact and partially intact vehicles of non-human origin managed within illegally concealed special access programs. Grush specifically cited compartmentalization as a mechanism used to evade congressional oversight. The 2024 AARO Historical Report, Volume 1, acknowledged investigating claims of crash retrieval programs, but stated it found no empirical evidence of such programs. Notably, the report was criticized by members of Congress, including Representatives Tim Burchett and Anna Paulina Luna, for its limited scope and alleged lack of access to relevant SAPs. The Inspector General of the intelligence community had already found Grusch's complaints credible and urgent. The question isn't just whether S4 exists, it's whether the structure Lazar described, the deliberate fracturing of knowledge, is itself a feature of programs the government has neither confirmed nor meaningfully denied. The All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office released its Historical Record Report, Volume 1, in March 2024. It is the most comprehensive official response to reverse engineering allegations in U.S. history, and it is conspicuously silent on Bob Lazar. The report addresses crash retrieval claims broadly. It traces the lineage of UAP investigation from Project Blue Book through AATIP. It names programs. It evaluates allegations. But Robert Lazar, the single most publicly visible claimant in the history of this subject, is not discussed by name, nor is S4 addressed specifically. This omission is itself data. Either AARO concluded Lazar's claims were so thoroughly debunked that they warranted no mention, which would be a strange editorial choice given his cultural prominence, or his claims intersect with classifications that AARO either could not or chose not to address in an unclassified document. The Pentagon, when asked directly about Lazar over the years, has offered variations of the same non-answer. They have no record of his employment, the same line they used about Los Alamos before the phone book surfaced. 35 years of scrutiny have produced a strange result. The story hasn't been proven, but it hasn't collapsed either. The things that can be checked have partially held up. Lazar worked at Los Alamos. Element 115 was synthesized. His description of extreme compartmentalization mirrors what multiple subsequent whistleblowers have independently described. His physical descriptions of seamless craft construction now sound less like science fiction and more like advanced manufacturing. The things that can't be checked remain in limbo. No independent witness has publicly confirmed S4. No physical evidence of the stable element 115 isotope has surfaced outside classified channels. His educational credentials remain unverified, and the US government, which possesses the definitive ability to confirm or deny the core claim, refuses to do either. Not a denial, not a confirmation. Silence. Bob Lazar is either one of the most important witnesses in human history or one of the most resilient fabricators. After 35 years, the most unsettling thing about his story isn't what he claims. It's that the entity with the power to end the debate simply won't. In the final accounting, the Lazar case isn't really about one man's credibility. It's about a system where records can be erased, where employment can be denied until a phone book proves otherwise, where congressional oversight committees are told they lack the clearance to see what their own government is doing. If Bob Lazar is telling the truth, the implications restructure our understanding of physics, of biology, of our place in the cosmos. If he's lying, he's done so with a consistency and specificity that has outlasted every attempt to dismantle his account. But the third possibility is the one that should concern us most, that the truth doesn't matter, because the system is designed so that no one outside it will ever be able to verify it. That's not a UFO problem. That's a democracy problem. And after 35 years, the desert still isn't talking.